Our audience probably would like to know what some of the different types of recognition programs that are out there. I'll start with length of service, which I think is probably one of the top recognition program that continues to be offered around organizations and globally as well as here in the States. So what are some other types of recognition programs?
Well, Rose, some of the most common ones, of course you mentioned the most common. There are recognition programs around providing suggestions. The classic suggestion box that really I think became popular in the 70s and 80s, we still see a lot of prevalence around that, although not quite as much as we used to. Some organizations have programs around attendance, particularly those where their operations are particularly labor intensive. I've had some experience in companies I've worked for where around the holidays or Christmas periods where maybe you get a high sick outage, where you'll put in a program to incent employees to not get sick during the holidays and so that your customers are not negatively impacted. Recently in the last few years we've seen companies move somewhat away from sort of what I'll call sort of rest and vest. As long as you're around, you've got your 5-year, your 10-year, your 15-year, you're going to receive something, or you simply show up to work in terms of an attendance program. Companies are now moving more towards more specific, almost incentive type recognition programs where they are looking for specific behaviors. A certain project that really needs to get done on time, or customer service numbers are falling and the customer relations staff they're concerned about that, and maybe they put in a recognition program where if they get a compliment from a customer, then the manager can provide some sort of spot award. So what we're seeing now is more specific, targeted types of recognition programs to incent more specific behaviors. And
very different, Kerry, from an incentive program such as a variable pay program, correct?
Yeah, and the main difference between a sort of a full-blown incentive program and more of these recognition programs in many cases has to do with the timing. Most incentive programs will have a performance period that's 6 months or a year is probably the most common, where you're looking for certain objectives to be made. Those could be operational, many times they're financial, and if those are made, the objectives are accomplished, then there's some payout. Recognition, where it really has a lot of value, is in the spontaneity and the surprise, really, where a manager just comes up and maybe gathers the work group together and says, Betty did a super job on this and we want to recognize her. So it's an unexpected award. Oftentimes organizations will use recognition programs to augment their incentive programs, because the incentive programs really are, okay, we're starting on January 1st, at December 31st we're going to see our results, and so that's kind of a known quantity and a known duration of that program, and then hopefully there's some payout. Meanwhile, the recognition programs can be kind of interspersed and used in between times. We shouldn't go in with the desire to have every employee recognized every day. Although that sounds nice on paper, it actually can be counterproductive if your organization is, let's say, over the top on recognition. The fact that people are getting recognition gets so expected that it really loses its value and can even in some cases have a negative impact. Recognition, one of its values is that it's not just doled out with great measure, but it's used carefully, that the objectives and criteria for what constitutes a recognition award, or at least generally understood so that you don't have one manager giving out recognition for something that may not, be substantial, and another manager, waiting until somebody's walking on water before they're given an award. You want to have some continuity there.
Well, and I think that there's probably other recognition too, such as peer-to-peer, where then you're not relying on the manager to be giving and recognizing employees, but it's employees' own peers that are recognizing maybe above and beyond performance or something that's happened immediately that's helped in their unit or their team to accomplish the goals that they're working towards. So it's not just the managers, but it also could be something that you set up in your organization where the coworkers can do it to each other. And again, probably putting in something in place that would not make it happen on a daily basis, but something that's more meaningful that says, yes, it really means something to me because it was given to me after working for a team project that was finally completed and I really put my all into it. So those are very valuable to the employees as well as just even the pat on the back, I'm assuming.
Yeah, very, very much so. And one thing, Rose, I wanted to jump back to just a little bit is the program we talked about at the top, which is just the simple length of service. Now, those programs are still very popular, but they have fallen into a little bit of disfavor the past few years. Some organizations believe, hey, we want our employees to be working hard every year, and we don't want to give them a sense of entitlement or, okay, now I have 5 years of service, so I'm sort of safe and I can coast a little bit. So there are many organizations that have curtailed those, or maybe it's only once every 10 years rather than every year. I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of length of service programs. I think that certainly in the last 20 years, the notion that you're going to be a junior executive in your first job out of college and you're going to work there for 35 years and get your gold watch, that used to be kind of the norm. Well, that just isn't the case anymore. The average employee is going to be working for 7, 8, or 10 or more employers during their lifetime. We shouldn't let the pendulum swing too far to where we completely ignore the length of service. Now, we may not want to do a big, huge party every single year like some organizations have done in the past, but I think that we still need to recognize someone who has stuck it out with the same employer for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years. There is tremendous value, especially with your high performers, of keeping them engaged, not having to retrain or retool new employees. I think as organizations think about length of service and tenure-based recognition programs, they should think that through carefully.
Well, thanks, Kerry, for that great information on the basics of recognition programs. For World at Work, I'm Rose Stanley.
And I'm Kerry Chou.